Nothing quite like the dinosaur death pits has ever been encountered before. In the most exciting pit, two dinosaurs, possibly meat-eaters, lay at the bottom, followed by an as-yet unnamed dinosaur, and two tyrannosaurs. Guanlong, the crested dragon, on top. Finding their cause of death has not been easy. When geologist Dr. David Eberth first examined the multi-layered corpses in the blocks, he found traces of ancient ash. He also found that many of the skeletons were sharply dislocated, as in this apparent case of a broken neck. It looks as though the animals had been trampled on while stuck in something gooey.
This is a point at which this skeleton was probably stepped on and folded in soft muds. Had the ground been really hard, it's very, very difficult to preserve a specimen in 3 dimensions, the way that this string of neck vertebrae are preserved.
But would different groups of light, agile, and voracious carnivores march into a pile of goo? It seems from the reconstructions that they would have been strong animals, strong enough to slog through. Perhaps ash and rain fell out of the sky, freezing the animals in their death throes, making this a true dinosaur Pompeii. The X-ray analysis reveals that the ashy material found in the sediments from the pits was indeed volcanic.
We know that volcanoes were exploding from time to time in this area, and we know that these volcanoes were nearby because some of the crystals are quite large and they wouldn't be able to travel that far in the air.
Eberth also finds evidence of giant marshes in Guanlong's home territory. Any ash falling into it could have been a recipe for dinosaur disaster.
The sediment itself is really unusual. The ash would have within it lots of glass particles, and those glass particles would settle down into this wetlands area, creating a thick mud, a soupy mud.
The result, what you might call quick mud, Eberth believes is just as deadly as quicksand or tar. Could this mixture be gooey enough to trap a small, agile carnivore like Guanlong?
We got very, very interested in whether or not this volcanic mud, this volcanic goo, actually could trap a small theropod.
Time for a little muddy ingenuity. With Don Henderson's help, Eberth concocts an unusual experiment, mixing water with volcanic ash.
What would happen if we took an animal that had a foot the size of a raptor and it walked into this soupy mixture?
And we scaled this foot to what we think the size of the animals that we're getting trapped were.
They attach a foot to the apparatus and add weights to account for the mass of the animal.
Got it?
Yep.
Now we're going to put on 2 25-pound weights, which are going to give us a total of 120 pounds of weights, about 125 pounds for the whole apparatus.
125 pounds, or 57 kilos, is less than what an adult Guanlong would have weighed. So if this fake foot goes through the mud easily, so would a foot of a life-size Guanlong.
75 and 50, that's
Okay,
120.
so we're just going to run her down and see what happens. I would say that went right through. Okay, so we're going to pull this thing out of there.
But removing it is a different story.
Got to be careful that we don't lift the entire pit of mud up. Turn that around. If you look at the stress gauge, the number that's showing up is measuring the amount of force that it takes to remove the foot from the sediment. It's giving us a good indication that this is pretty sticky stuff and would be difficult for you or me to pull our feet out of here. Yeah.
Studies have shown that removing a human foot from quicksand could require the same amount of force that's needed to lift a medium-sized car. This quick mud is not quite as viscous as quicksand, but the comparison is telling.
What we discovered surprised us. We found that these muds are actually going to trap animals quite easily, more easily than we had anticipated.
What emerged is almost certainly what's known as a carnivore trap. Such traps are extraordinarily rare in the fossil record. The most famous one is the La Brea tar pits in California, where the viscous tar ensnared prey animals like mammoths. Predators like saber-toothed cats and dire wolves would attack the helpless animals, only to be trapped themselves. In the case of the Gobi dinosaurs, the quick mud would have been equally fatal.
Once the first animal got trapped, then they became active predator traps.
Here is what might have happened on that distant day, nearly 100 million years before T-Rex ruled the world. The Gobi was a primordial Eden, where swift and deadly raptors darted about in search of prey. Among them, Guanlong, the crested dragon, lion of the Jurassic. This place is lush enough to support the first true giants. Like Mamenchisaurus, with its 9-meter neck. These are beyond the appetite of even voracious Guanlong. The smaller creatures, like Yinlong, are fair game. But something is going very wrong. Nearby, a mountain is spewing its flaming guts into the sky, hurling ash miles into the air in all directions.